This is Lori Fetrick, aka Ice from the American Gladiators, and you are listening to Fascination Street.
AV in your ears, that's Ambush Van, giving you this audio visual down the most interesting street in the world. With my boy Steve, Fascination Street, you already know. Let's get it. When you whip in the Fascination Street, what do you...
Welcome back, Streetwalkers. This is a return appearance with Lori Fetrick, aka Ice, from the American Gladiator TV show. So we don't do the whole get to know you thing like we did back in May of 2023. So if you want to catch up with her, check that out. It's available everywhere. Just go back, hit rewind, or whatever you do. In this episode, we catch up on everything that's happened since she was on the show last time. We talk about some of her appearances, whether it was on podcasts, whether it was in cons, like she was at the New York Comic Con. We talked a little bit about that. We touch on what it was like to go to the Adam Carolla Christmas party, which sounded super fun. I do ask her a few questions about her Gladiator times. We talk about her appearance on the Howard Stern show that never happened. We talk about what it was like to go from being at the height of all of the Gladiator fame to it just going away and what that entailed. Of course, we talk about her podcast, Chillin With Ice, which is nearing its 1-year anniversary. It's a great show. I am a listener. I think you all should be too. We talk about some of the things that might be in store for her podcast as far as changes, and also how the podcast has changed since she started it, and what are some of her favorite things about doing the podcast, and what she's learned from all of that. And then finally, we close out talking about her most recent episode of her show, Chillin With Ice, and the episode is called Let's Talk About Boobs. And the reason that she talks about this is because she had her implants replaced for reasons. And so we talk about what the reasons were and some of the research that she ended up having to do. And basically, she just gives advice to women about the kinds of things to look for if you're going to either have it done for the first time or have them replaced or even have them removed. It's sort of a touchy subject, and it's full of hurdles where people don't ask questions, and it's uncomfortable to talk about sometimes. But I wanted to bring it up because I think that her advice can help other ladies in a similar situation, or, in an upcoming situation or whatever. Make sure you check out Chillin With Ice, Lori Fetrick's podcast. It's available everywhere. She has a children's book coming out probably in the middle of the year. She might be on the show again before that to talk about it, or right as it's coming out. But either way, Lori's awesome. You guys know this. She's so much fun to talk to. She's so much fun to listen to. And this is my second conversation with the host of Chillin With Ice, Lori Fetrick.
Prepare to be fascinated. Prepare to be fascinated. Prepare to be fascinated.
Welcome back to Fascination Street Podcast, Lori Fetrick. What's up?
What's up? It's good. Happy 2024.
So far.
I know,
I got my fingers crossed.
God, time is flying.
It sure is. Streetwalkers, this is a return episode with Lori Fetrick, aka Ice from the American Gladiators. OG Ice, if you will. So we're not going to do the get to know you thing. We did that on the first one, which came out May 29th, 2023. So go back and check that one out, and then you'll catch up to where we are right now. So we're going to talk about all the things that have happened since then, and it is a lot. Now, Lori, when we talked last time, I think you were 4 or 5 episodes into your podcast, Chillin With Ice.
Yes.
It might have been more, but not many more. It was somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And now you're into the second season, and you got all these, your show's totally different now. And I think that that's what I said was going to happen.
Yep.
Your show's totally different now than it was when you started, but in a good way, right?
Yes.
So like water, podcasting finds its own level. It's going to be what it's going to be, whether you fight it or you roll with it. And your show is gangbusters.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Again, everybody, it's called Chillin With Ice. I am a subscriber. I love the show. You ask great questions. You have a lot of fun with your guests. Not to date when we were recording this, but you had an episode that came out today that was unlike any episode you've ever done. But we're going to talk about that way later.
Okay.
It's a very special Christmas episode, sort of.
It is.
But first, so you were on the show right before the Netflix documentary Muscles of Mayhem actually came out.
Yes.
So now that you're back, what's changed? Are you a million times more in demand now?
Yeah, I wish I was a million times.
You're everywhere. You are everywhere.
We could go maybe 100 times more, maybe, but not a million. The Netflix documentary came out like gangbusters. It was awesome. We stayed in the top 10 for, I think, 3 weeks, which is great for Netflix. And it did exactly what I wanted it to do for myself, my career. And that is kind of like restart, reboot the second act, of my life going forward. I couldn't be more happy with how they did the actual Netflix documentary. They did an amazing job with it.
Now, I know that at the time we talked last, you said something like you went in there for a couple of 12-hour days or something insane like that. And as it turns out, the end result was more or less, you had probably the most screen time of anybody who was a gladiator.
It's funny that you say that, though, because I watched that thing, I can't tell you how many times. And I think each gladiator did the same thing, because all of us have the, certain small little egos.
Well, it's a competitive thing, right?
Yes.
You were all competitive athletes, so that's natural.
So I looked at it and I was like, oh my God, Nitro was on this thing like 99% of the time. Did he give anybody else screen time?
You're like, oh, geez, is this the Nitro show?
Again?
And then Nitro's like, geez, are we all chilling with ice? What's going on here?
That's what I'm saying. It is kind of funny the way all of us think and how we perceive things. So it's all perception.
As your show, Chillin With Ice, is nearing its 1-year anniversary. Happy upcoming birthday, by the way.
Thank you.
How has the show changed? And how has Lori changed as a podcast host?
Lori, let's start with that. Lori has gotten way more comfortable.
It shows.
I mean, do you remember your first 5, 6 episodes?
Yes, I do. And it's some of the most uncomfortable moments of my life.
Yes.
If I go back and listen, I'm just like, I'm sweating. I'm nervous. I'm stuttering. I'm asking the same question twice. Like, I'm just like, At one point, I fanboyed out on somebody. It was like that Saturday Night Live sketch with Chris Farley and Patrick Swayze, where he's interviewing him and he's just like, so you were in Dirty Dancing.
Yeah, I remember that skit.
That's cool. And so that's what I felt like the first 7 years. No, the first lot of episodes. So is that how you felt?
Yeah. I mean, my first 5 episodes, at least 5, 6 episodes, 7, who knows? I go back and I'm like, oh my God, I said that word too many times. Oh my God, I said that too many times. And you go back and you critique yourself and you're just like, okay, I need to do this. I need to do that. So I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about podcasting, and I absolutely love it more today than I actually did when I started, and I loved it when I first started.
Why do you like it more now?
I'm more comfortable in my own skin. I'm way more comfortable. I'm not intimidated by, interviewing different guests, whoever they may be. You realize they're all human. We all have the same thoughts in our heads most of the time. We don't want to look stupid. You want to come across, somewhat intelligent, and articulate. So I've become way more comfortable in my own skin, and, podcasting has just become that much more fun for me. So the way that it evolved, yes, I started with all the gladiators, and that was so much fun just getting to know what they've been up to, this entire time, how they felt behind the scenes during Gladiators. I learned some things that I didn't even know half of it was happening behind the scenes, basically, because if it wasn't involving me, then I didn't know what was going on, let's say with Nitro and Saber. I didn't know what was going on between Dallas and, let's say, Jazz behind the scenes. I mean, all these different things. So it was so much fun catching up with all of them.
And it was fun for us to catch up on all of them with you. It was a fun journey to go on that first season. And then tell me what inspired the change for the second season.
It was more along the lines, I mean, I didn't want to get really pigeonholed in just gladiators, because let's put it this way, we have so many fans, and I want to, extend, and I want to grow, and I want to hit more people and more fans. And so I needed to start incorporating different things, bringing in my anti-aging hormone doctor, bringing in Miss Olympia, Linda Murray, talking about, the whole bodybuilding things. And there were so many different people that, on the schedule right now, that I just wanted to get to know their backstory and what their second act is going forward. Let's face it. Most of the people I'm interviewing, they're either around my age or within a certain amount of years, and they're in kind of like their second act, in their lifetime. So it's fun to figure out what they're doing, what turned them, what obstacles they had to overcome.
Their pivot.
Exactly. Their pivot. 100%.
Again, so much fun. Your show is a blast. This is going to sound crazy. Do you have a favorite episode so far?
When I was doing my review of 2023, Crystal Hefner, she was an amazing guest. I really enjoyed interviewing her. Nitro was actually a lot of fun to interview.
Was he more fun than you thought he would be?
You know what? He made me wait. It sounds so ridiculous. I asked him 3 times, and he swears that I didn't ask him 3 times, but I did. The first time he goes, "You're not ready." He literally said that to me. Are you kidding me? So I was like, okay, that's fine. And I waited a couple months and I asked him again, and something came up. And I think the second time I said, "This is the last time I'm asking you to be on my podcast." And then obviously the third time came up and he said, okay. And so I said, okay, let's do this. So I did have a lot of fun with him because of the fact that a lot of people have pointed out that he and I have so much history together that, it was fun kind of getting into it and really exploring some of those things that we did together. We made fun of when we had to kiss, on the Ellen show. I know Nitro, Dan Clark.
Never, ever, ever, ever call him Dan Clark. Nobody's going to know who that is for the rest of eternity.
I know. Isn't that funny? And yet at the same time, I'm trying to not necessarily completely rebrand myself, but really trying to get my name, Lori Fetrick, out there. I'll always be known as Ice, which is fine.
Yeah, because it's a cool name.
Exactly.
If it was Numbskull, you'd be like, that wasn't even me. That was somebody else.
But, with all the different drama that happens and what's going on with, some of the cease and desists that we're getting.
You're still getting them.
Oh, my God. Well, we got the one, which was huge. And so, yeah, we have, different lawyers taking care of that.
And so those cease and desist are specifically geared toward Chillin With Ice?
No. It's specifically geared towards the gladiators who did the Netflix documentary, because the fact that the specific gentleman that we did not do his documentary
It's okay. You don't have to say gentleman because he's not a gentleman.
Got his feelings hurt. And so therefore he wasn't too happy. So basically what he's doing is he's trying to come after us to not let us use our gladiator names.
Because before the rule was as long as you say former or previously or known as or whatever. But now it's like, oh, you can't even say that?
Former, 100%. They can't take that away from us. They cannot take our past away from us. They can't take away who we were. But again, they're putting out some effort to try to do that, but there's no way they can do that. They can't do that.
Spend that money, dumbass. Go right ahead.
Damn, I know. It's an unfortunate situation, but so yeah, going back to the, the favorite podcast, I would say, Crystal Hefner, Dan Clark, Nitro. I did have a lot of fun with Dallas, even though she was kind of unprepared at the time and she was on the side of the road in her car, and it kind of made it really raw.
That was an experience. I was like, she didn't want to reschedule? This seems super inconvenient.
Oh, I know. So I had so much fun with so many of them. Malibu, that one just came out. That was another disaster of a podcast because his internet connection absolutely was the worst. So it kept coming in and out. And that's the other thing, as a podcaster, I've learned to just go, okay, listen, we need to cut this podcast. It's not going to happen. I'd rather not put anything out than a podcast where somebody's so frustrated just listening to it.
Right. And then the guest they're not going to come out looking good either. So you're doing you both a favor.
Right. Exactly.
Well, and us as the listener.
I know.
I can't tell you how many times I listen to a show, because I listen to a lot of podcasts when I'm preparing for a guest or whatever.
Mhm.
And oh my God, the vast majority of them that and they'll leave it in. They don't edit at all. And I'm just like, what do you do? I listened to a show where the guest was like, hey, I have to go to the bathroom real quick. I'll be right back.
No way.
I shouldn't have ever heard that. They left that dead air in. They said, oh, okay, cool. We'll be right here. And they didn't edit any of that out. And then they came back and the guest was like, oh man, so sorry about that. Thanks for, okay. And we're back. And they didn't edit any of that out. And I'm just like, what is wrong with you? You're going to make your audience listen to that?
I mean, I have a producer, I have an engineer that's actually in the studio with me. And then what I do is I take my podcast and I send it to my producer and she does all the editing for me. And I tell her, like, if there was something in the middle of the podcast, beginning, whatever it is, I'm like, hey, check this out because I need you to edit it out. So we're always in communication. And that's one of the things to where it's just, I want to come across as professional as I can. And my listeners aren't going, what the fuck?
Exactly. Exactly. Now, you mentioned you added you mentioned you have other folks. As far as I know, you added Jeff since we talked last. Who's Jeff and what does he do?
Jeff is my engineer in the studio. And it's not that I necessarily added him. It's this. So I have had, I'm not going to say quite a few, but I'm going to say a numerous requests to do the podcast by myself.
What do you mean?
That means no guest. That means pick a subject and talk. And I'm like, I don't know if I can carry this for like 30 to 45 minutes. I need someone to play off of.
That's some tough sledding.
Yes. And so that's where Jeff comes into play. He has his own podcast. So therefore, it's easy for him to carry on a conversation with me. He's done all my podcasts. He knows me in and out when it comes to that kind of stuff.
So he was there from the beginning. He just wasn't on mic.
Yes.
Okay.
It's kind of fun playing off of him because somebody is like, well, if you can find a co-host that will play, not to sound bad, but that can play down to you. Because if you're going to find a co-host, some of them want to come up, they want to be equal. That's not going to work. So Jeff kind of came in and it was like, hey, this actually works with him.
Not disrespectful, but a sidekick, not a co-host.
100%. There you go. A sidekick. It's almost like, remember like when Howard Stern came out and what's her name? Oh my God, her name just slipped my mind. Anyway, when Howard Stern came out, every once in a while, he would kind of like put a question to her and she'd come back and she'd answer it and they'd have a little chit chat, about it. And that's what she was. She became his sidekick.
Well, you did the Adam Carolla Show. So at the beginning of the year, he changed his format a little bit. So he used to have, it was Adam and then his sidekick was Gina Grad. And then he had a sound effects guy who was also sort of a sidekick and his name was Bald Bryant. At the beginning of the year, those two transformed into sort of a different role and it's kind of just him and the guest. And then occasionally a producer will chime in. But that's how his show was because he modeled it after, the radio show.
Yeah.
There's never been a morning show with just one person, I don't think. It's always multiple people because they play off each other. They feed off of each other. They bounce things off of each other. And that's why it's hard to do it by yourself.
Yeah, I can literally do that all day long. I can play off of somebody. I can bounce ideas. I can bounce a conversation. And those last 2 episodes that I did just recently, that to me, I had a lot of fun. And I was like, wait a minute, I can do this, but I definitely need someone like Jeff. If it's not Jeff, then I need someone like that, as that sidekick.
Even like your first episode was with your girlfriend, right?
I know.
You were the guest, basically.
Yeah, I tried to get her back and she got a really good job. And so she's been busy. She's like, I don't have time to do your podcast.
Yeah, I don't have time for your show. She's like, you're not ready.
You're not ready.
Now, I heard you say fairly recently that you wanted to start having someone interview you about your show on your show like once a month or so. This was a few episodes back. You said something like that.
It's funny. Yeah. The podcast it's taken some twists and turns and dives. And at one point in time.
No dives.
No dives. Okay. Not in dives. Okay. So there was at one point in time, I thought I found a new home.
You mean a home for your podcast?
Yes, I was going to go with Canna Talk 101, and that was with Joe Grande and Blue. Unfortunately, that did not work out. And it actually was a godsend that it did not work out because that's not where my podcast needed to be held. What that means is finding a home to where it's like I can be on their network, on their platform, sponsors, all of that whole thing right there.
Why do you feel like you need a network?
Because of the fact that, the whole thing is coming out of my pocket. I rent my studio. I pay my producer. Every podcast that I do comes out of my pocket, and it gets kind of costly at the end of the month. That's why I started looking for someone to kind of help me. They were going to basically, if they produce my show, I don't have to pay that cost anymore. I find a home, they bring on their sponsors, blah, blah, blah. I do have a meeting with another network company. So we'll see how that goes. But that's kind of what I'm looking for because of the fact that podcasting gets very expensive. I don't have a place in my home to do it. I've got too many animals.
4 dogs.
I got 4 dogs. And not only that, to be quite honest with you, I don't want my guests to come to my home.
Yeah, I got you. Shit. Some of my family doesn't know where I live.
As of right now, in my mind, I'll never stop podcasting until it gets to the point to where it's like, okay, so maybe this is costing me a little bit too much money. I do have a Patreon. It does help a little bit, not paying the foot of the bill, but yet at the same time, anything helps. So therefore, who knows? I don't know where by the end of this year, I have a good idea, where it's going to go, but time will tell.
By the end of the year, what does that mean?
Well, by the next 30 days, I think I'm going to find a new home for my podcast.
Okay, got you.
Hey, Streetwalkers, here's a word from our sponsors.
What's up, everybody? If you're listening to this, then it's your lucky day. Be sure to check out our entertainment-based podcast, Inside the Crazy Ant Farm, on all podcast platforms and YouTube, where each week we talk about the latest news that is going down in Hollywood. And on top of that, we also interview your favorite celebrity guests. Yes, that's right, we break them out of their shell and let them get a little crazy. It's all about having a good time on our show, so be sure to like and subscribe on all podcast platforms and YouTube at ITCAF Podcast and on our YouTube channel, Crazy Ant Media.
Let's get back into it.
Since we last spoke, you have had your hands in everything. Mm-hmm. You did New York Comic-Con.
Yes.
I know that we had talked briefly about you and some of the other gladiators wanting to get into the con space.
Yes.
How did the con circuit go, and how many cons did you do in 23?
Last year, we actually just did New York Comic-Con because unfortunately, when our documentary came out, it was at the end of June.
Right.
Well, by the end of June, the entire year is already booked with cons. They book them at the very beginning of the year. So as of today, I already have 7 cons on the books for this year.
Is one of them New York Comic-Con in mid-April?
Not yet, no.
Oh, okay.
Working on it.
Hey, why don't you come to San Antonio? Who gives a shit con?
Aww.
I don't know what it's called, but why don't you come on down? Come down to the San Antonio con, whatever the hell that is.
Exactly. So we've got that. I've got set. And then, obviously I'm in a great promoter, and he's been really kind of pushing me out there with a couple of the gladiators. So that's amazing. I do have a children's book coming out this year.
I know. I have it on here that you partnered to write a children's book.
Yes.
Who's it with, and what's that all about?
It is called Playground Warriors, and we connected with an animation company. And hopefully we're going to have an animation following the book. The book will be self-published, the very first one. And then after that one, we're hoping to get with a bigger publisher or a publisher at that point in time to do a nice little series of them.
Why did you decide to do children's books?
Because I've always thought how cool and how fun it's going to be, because I am such a kid at heart.
Boy, are you. Your favorite movie is Hook.
I know, right? And that right there is like never wanting to grow up. I have this thing. I've never had kids. I absolutely love kids. And with being a kid at heart, it's like using your imagination is so key. And, I think a lot of it's missing in today's day and age. And so therefore I got together with, my manager up in Canada, and we put our heads together. And we're like, okay, let's create this with the animation company. It's going to be a home run hit and I can't wait. We just hired a PR company this week. So they're really going to be pushing it out there. There's going to be a book signing tour following it. So yes, that's really exciting what's on the books with that.
Check you out. When do you think that book is going to come out?
That book should come out in, I'm going to say, second quarter of this year.
Okay.
That's the plan.
Okay. You were on the Adam Carolla Show.
Yeah.
I love Adam dearly. He's a friend. He's been on my show. I've recorded my show in his studio. Dear, dear man.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that said, present company excluded, what's the best interview you have done since all of the things blew up? You've been everywhere. You've been on morning shows, on TV and the radio, and you've done a million podcasts, and you're just everywhere. What's the most fun? What's the best interview you've done since?
God, I think it was called Fascination Street.
Oh, stop it. Besides me.
I love being on your show. You are a very, very good interviewer. And that's really what it does take to have fun on a podcast, especially being a guest. Being a guest on a podcast, okay, let's be real. We just love talking about ourselves. So if the interviewer lets us talk about ourselves, then it is a very fun interview, and it's kind of like toss the softball, give me a nice little lob, let me hit it out. I've had some interviews to where I sit back and just kind of go, whoa, that was interesting.
I've listened to a few interviews with you on different podcasts because I just wanted to see what was up. And some of them, I found myself thinking, well, they could have done this show without her at all.
I've learned a lot also by being interviewed by other people, what not to do.
Yeah, right there with you. That's why I listen to podcasts so much. It helps me fine tune the things that I feel like I'm doing right and kind of get rid of the things or make sure I don't do some of the things that other fools do.
Yes. I had one guy to where every 10 minutes, he would almost recap what we talked about. And it was almost like the telephone line game. So the first 10 minutes, he asked me the questions and then he stopped and he recapped that 10 minutes. And then he went on for another 10 minutes. And that 20 minutes, he recapped the 20 minutes. And he did this throughout the entire podcast. And I was like, wow, that's an interesting way of doing it.
So that sounds like it's somebody who's from the terrestrial radio game where people can tune in at any moment and then you got to catch them up. But with a podcast, you can't just pop into the middle of a podcast. Like, unless you're hitting the fast forward button a lot, well, hey, people are people, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, other than that, most of the interviews, to be quite honest with you, they're fun. I do love doing, podcasts and interviews. And I can't really say which one was my, the favorite. See, those are my dogs. And this is why I cannot have a podcast at my house.
I love it. So you went to the Adam Carolla Christmas party. Tell me how exciting that was. Did he ask you when you were there or did they send you an email or something and say, hey, come to the party?
I got it from Crystal, his assistant.
How much fun was that party? I saw you got to meet Tia Carrera. What?
It was fun. Yeah.
Did you take your girlfriend?
Yes, that was April.
And so she's the one that's in most of the pictures with you, right?
Yes. Long dark hair.
Nice. So how much fun was it? Like, was it just a blast?
It was fun. I'm not going to say it was a complete blast. I mean, Hollywood celebrity. And you know who I had fun with is the one comedian. And I was in the photo with him and I forgot his last name, but his name is Jeff. Big, tall dude. I think he's Australian. Right when we got to the party, he came up to us and we just hit it off. And he had a friend with him. And so we were just laughing the entire party and we had a lot of fun with them. And then there was a grip of people that we had fun with. Another comedian, his name is Rudy.
Sure.
He was a super nice guy.
Nice.
So anyway, I mean, yeah, it was fun. It was a great party. But again, it was still a Hollywood Christmas party.
Sure.
And it's about who's seen with who, that kind of thing.
Sure. How many people came up and said, can I take a picture with you?
I had a handful. It was nice. I mean, it was a ginormous Hollywood party. It was a small celebrity party. And so I would honestly say in and out, there was probably about 100, 200 people. It was fun. Look, I don't know, Steve. I'm humble about this shit. I don't know. I don't want to go, yeah, everybody at the party knew who I was. I can't say that.
I
That's not.
can. I'll say it. I'll say it. I'll say it. Hang on. Be quiet. Shh. I think everybody at the party knew who you were. And also, hey, Adam, I know you're listening. My invitation must have got lost in the mail, bro. What happened? We're going to go back a little bit to your Gladiator days. At the beginning of your Gladiator career, you declined to be on the Howard Stern show. Tell me why.
Because I had listened to Howard, and I knew at that point in time, Howard was huge and he was bold and he was crass. He pulled no punches. He was scary for me. Let's put it that way. I was new in the industry. I was a baby in that industry. I didn't know anything about it. I was gay. I wasn't allowed to come out.
Oh, really? You were gay? I didn't know that.
At that time, I was gay. At that time, everybody's like, don't come out, don't do this, don't do that, constantly. And I knew if I went on Howard, that was the first thing that's going to come out of his mouth. And he was going to go, so are you a big dyke lesbian or what's going on here?
Oh, you hate that word more than anything else.
I hate the word dyke, and I don't know why. Maybe I just associate it with something that I'm so not, and I'll probably get hate mail on this one, but it is what it is. And every time it's like every different season, it sounds like there's a different word for lesbians. There was lipstick lesbians, there was dykes, you name it. But that, for some reason, I just hated that word. And I knew that that's what he was going to do. And I have kind of I'm an Aries, and I have like a small little fuse that I just kind of go, ugh. And I thought, oh my God, what if I go on the air? He calls me this, and all of a sudden, then I kind of snap back at him, And I was like, this might not end well. So maybe I just decline.
The show ends with you punching Howard Stern in the face. That'd be amazing. He's in a headlock screaming, go to commercial, go to commercial.
Exactly. I just thought, maybe I'll just cut my losses here and just not even do this show. But now I want to do it.
Well, now you can't because he's got COVID.
Oh, he does have COVID.
Mm-hmm. Which is weird because he's only left his house twice in 3 years. So I don't know how he got it.
Yeah.
The last time you were on the show, I forgot to ask you a question about your post-Gladiator experience. You grew up poor. So poor your mom made your own clothes and things. Then you had an amazing life where all of your needs were catered to all the time. I mean, they didn't pay you for shit, but they took you in cars everywhere and they flew you everywhere and they put you up everywhere. They did all the things.
Yeah, I just didn't make the money.
And then it all went away.
Yeah.
How was that?
Pretty shitty. Pretty depressing.
How did you come to grips with that? Like, how was your emotional or mental coming to terms with that change? Like, to have it and then now it's gone. And like, now what the fuck am I supposed to do? What is my new life?
I never had a conversation with myself about my identity and who I was until that time. And then I kind of had to take a step back and do some self-reflecting. Who is Lori? Who is Ice? Where's the separation? What did I lose? What did I gain? All these questions. It was a really hard road for a good 6 months, maybe going into a year, but really the first 6 months because of the fact that I realized that it was gone. Then you have these illusions of grandeur that you're going to have it back somehow, some way by doing more television. Well, at that point in time, that's when all the reality shows came out, and they didn't want anybody that was already on television, no matter what form or fashion it was. They wanted everyday average people. So as time went on and I realized, they don't want us. So now what's my next move? And that's really the hardest part. Where am I going to make a living? How am I going to make money? So I fell back into the personal training genre that I knew before I went into Gladiators. And that was kind of a hard pill to swallow as well, because of the fact that, you're up here on this certain little pedestal. And all of a sudden, when you get knocked down, you're just like, now's the time. It's just, you swallow your pride. You go, okay, this is what I need to do. For me anyway, every single day I did a little bit more something towards the goal of where I wanted to go. And that was, okay, let's open my own fitness facility. I don't want to be a personal trainer my entire life. okay, let's be a business owner. I was already in Orlando at that time, found an investor and opened my gym down there. And life is funny, Steve. It's really interesting because at that time I bit off a little bit more than I could chew. I never ran a business before. I didn't even have a business degree. All I knew is that I had been inside of a gym and trained in a gym for the last, 15 years. And I was like, oh, okay, I can run this thing. So that was a little eye-opening as well. I've had some hard knocks throughout my life ever since Gladiators ended. But the one thing that I can say about myself is I'm a hustler. If there's an opportunity in front of me, I'll see where I can actually win from that. But yeah, it was a very, very tough road for a good solid 6 months going into a year until I found my footing again. So I think that's why with this documentary coming out and having to go a little bit on the second act, that's why nothing is taken for granted. Every single thing I do I'm so grateful for it and living in the moment of just enjoying every single second of it. Because I don't know, it could be gone tomorrow. I've already experienced that one.
Yeah, no shit. And when it goes, sometimes it goes for a while. Shit, sometimes it doesn't come back.
Dude, thank God I'm not a depressed person, because that would have been a pretty downhill spiral, thing.
Indeed.
But yeah, I'm not that person. So I was able to climb out of it. I was definitely able, but it was hard.
Feel like the inner you is also a bodybuilder. Like you're just as strong on the inside as you are on the outside. There's no quit in you, and you just get right back up and dust yourself off and you're all, bring it, son.
100%, you called it.
It's like getting knocked off of that joust thing. You're like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
All right, let's do it again. But this time I'm going to whoop your ass.
100%. You're absolutely right. Honestly, I'm going to say the last 10 years, and this is where time has no bearing on things except the wrinkles around your eyes. But, it's like.
You can see that? Oh, my goodness. I thought I was in the shadows over here.
Mine, dude, just mine. But in the last 10 years, there was something burning inside me going, I'm not done. I'm not done yet. There's this feeling inside of me, and I just kept having it. And I was just like, keep preparing. Something's going to happen. I had this feeling.
Be ready.
Yeah, be ready. That's one thing. And that's where the podcast comes along. That's where the documentary comes along, the children's book, the Comic-Cons, rebranding, the website, public speaking. It's like, this is truly 100% my second act. And it's probably taken 30 years to get here.
Isn't that crazy?
No, wait, not 30 years, because it was 30. Wait, so when did Gladiators end? Was it 30? I guess it was. Wait.
Don't start doing the math. You're going to feel old.
I know. I'll just get depressed. No. Okay, so let's just go around number 20 years. It's taken me 20 years with a lot of patience and persistence and, just the hustle of getting where I'm at back again.
Love it.
Hey, Streetwalkers, here's a word from our sponsors. Let's get back into it.
Okay, I only have really just one more thing I want to talk about, and this is a touchy subject, but your most recent episode, as we record this, came out today, and I really just want to ask you one question, and then I'm going to let you kind of go from there. And that question is, what did you get yourself for Christmas and why?
Why, thank you, Steve, for asking me that question. I got myself a new set of boobs.
And thanks for coming, everybody. Y'all take it easy. I know there was a reason, and the reason I'm asking is because I want you to maybe give some advice for other people that might be in a similar situation, because it wasn't the first go around of a replacement, right. And there's some reasons why you did it. You did a particular kind. There's like a over muscle versus under muscle or something like that. And so can you kind of explain why you felt like you needed to do it and why you chose the particular kind?
Yes. And it's funny. I did my podcast, Let's Talk About Boobs. And that just came out today. And I had a couple of my friends they were like, what's your next podcast? I go, I'm going to talk about my experience. I'm going to talk about getting my boobs redone. They're like, why would you do that? And I go, why not? I said, I think it's some great information. And there's a lot of people out there that need to know about this information. And if it comes from me, maybe somebody will listen to it and get some great advice, because I've been down the road now 3 times. I got my first set of boobs done when I was my second season of Gladiators. I kind of explain on my podcast talking about that of why I got them is because I was a very muscular woman. I had absolutely no breasts and I felt like a 12-year-old boy sometimes. I didn't feel sexy as a female, as a woman. So, yes, I got my breasts done and it wasn't for being on television or anything else. It was just for myself. I knew what I was signing up for at the time. And that is, once you get some implants done, you do have to most likely replace them. At that point in time, they said anywhere from 10 to 20 years. I have friends that have lasted longer than 20 years and their breasts are absolutely fine. And it's like, look, if they're not broke, don't fix them, if everything's fine. But unfortunately, my first set, I actually, they were 20 years old, went and got a mammogram and, they squeezed pretty fucking hard. So a little tiny leak came out and it was just saline solution. So, it was absorbing through my body, which was fine, but one was bigger than the other. So I had to get them replaced. And when I got them replaced with some silicone. So first of all, it's funny because I do talk about this on the podcast. When my doctor did them, when I got my first set, he was already a little older. And I didn't think about this, but when I went back to him the second time, he was 20 years older.
So you went to the same guy?
Yeah, I went to the same doctor because he did such a great job my first go round. Well, after doing a lot of research on this type of, the implants and everything, I probably should not have went back to him because just like everybody else, when they're in their own business, 30, 35 years, I don't know, sometimes doctors 40 years, they get a little complacent. They get a little routine. They know the safety protocols. I don't need to go to more seminars to figure out what's new and what's this. Well, they do. And this doctor, I don't believe he did. He was too old. He really wasn't up on his research. I did not know this. My bad. Got him done anyway. He did my second set. Well, I came out of surgery and one was still bigger than the other. And I was like, doc, what's this shit? He goes, they're just swollen. If they're not better in 3 months, I'll just replace them. That's not what a patient wants to hear. However, think about it. At the time, they were still like $6,000 and $7,000 at that time. So it wasn't a cheap kind of thing. So I went and got some consults and the doctors were like, hey, if he's going to do them free, let him do them free, because of the fact that if you come to me, I'm going to charge you another $8,000. It's just like, holy shit. Okay. Went back to him 3 months later. They hadn't gotten better. He replaced them. Anyway, that set lasted about 12 years, where we are today.
Is that guy dead?
He retired. I think, like I said on my podcast, I think I must have been his last patient. And he's just like, okay, I'm out. He must have been in his mid 80s. I tell the story and it is kind of funny. I don't think I told it on my podcast, but where they put the implants in, not to get too descriptive, but yes, I didn't want to go underneath the breast because of the fact that no matter what, when you lay down, when you see a big ass scar, it's not attractive. So I opted out to go right in the discoloration of the nipple. That's where they can do the actual incision. My point on this is when I went back to him to get my stitches out, his hand was shaking. And I was like, oh shit,
This is your most recent?
No, this was the doctor that did him
Gotcha.
to where I had to have him replaced.
Gotcha.
I just should not have went back to him. So the reason I had to have him done this time is, again, his fuck up. And that is, he should have never put the implant in that he put in. It just didn't fit my body. It wasn't the right one. Who knows? Maybe when he replaced them, they were the last ones on the shelf. I don't know.
Well, that's why he retired. He's like, I'm out. I got to retire now.
Exactly. Out of implants. Let's go. So when I went and I started doing all the consults and everything, I got a lot of information. Just on, like you said, going under the muscle, going over the muscle. Are you a bodybuilder? Are you just a fitness girl? Are you lean? Are you not lean? Steve, this is where it's like, I'm going to tell everybody here in your audience to get a full description of what I talked about. Go to the last episode of my podcast, Chillin With Ice, where it says, let's talk about boobs. You'll find out everything there is to know about going under the muscle, over the muscle, what type of implant, whether it's wide, narrow, high profile, low profile. Don't go out of the country to get them done. Fat grafting, that was a whole nother thing. They took different, a little bit of fat from alongside my, upper thighs and injected on top, to give that fullness. Steve, I got to say, this is the best, prettiest set I've ever had. And I have no regrets, and I absolutely love them. And I know a lot of women are out there going, take them out. I can't do that. I'm too muscular. I'm too big. I love them. They make me feel good. And that's just who I am.
The important part is that they make you feel good. Like you said at the beginning of all that the reason you did it initially was for yourself, to make you more confident, to make you feel better about yourself.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of things. It's funny because it's just that there's so much information out there now that I think that a lot of women need to do more research and ask more questions. And so many women are so afraid to ask questions. I had one lady say, well, do you want to take them out? And I'm like, oh my God. She goes, well, then you just do a breast lift. Well, I'm sorry, but when you do a breast lift, you're going to have scarring like you would not believe. And I'm like, no, I'm not for that. But there's all kinds of different options out there for women, for women that want to get their breasts either done, removed. It's endless, actually. It's just they need to ask a lot of questions and find the right doctor.
Yeah, make him hold something fragile.
Exactly. The woman who did mine she was 10 years out of school. And like I talked about on my podcast, I actually thought that was too young. I was like, oh my God, she's only 10 years out. And they were like, no, Lori, that's a sweet spot. You want 10 to 15 years out. They want to prove themselves. They know all the safety protocols. They're up on everything. And sure enough, and she was awesome. Her bedside manner, she made me laugh, made me feel super comfortable. My girlfriend walks in, she meets her. She goes like this. She goes, oh my God, she looks like she's 25. And I go, yeah, she looks a little young, but she's not.
So your doctor was Doogie Howser.
Yes. Yep. 100%.
Well, what wonderful words to go out on. Ladies, do your research. Like she said, go check out her episode called
Let's Talk About Boobs, my favorite subject.
So definitely go check that out. There's a lot of information in that episode. She doesn't really tell you what to do, but she tells you what to look for and what research to do, which I think is super helpful.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Lori Fetrick, thank you for coming back. Thank you so much for taking the time again out of your busy day and your hectic podcasting and touring schedule.
Anytime for you.
Buddy.
Anytime for you.
Lori, before I let you go, is there anything we didn't talk about this time that you wanted to talk about? Did I cover everything?
No, we covered it all. Let's talk again in like 6 months.
Let's do it. That's right around when your children's book is going to be coming out.
Absolutely. I should have a book tour set in stone, where I'm going to be, where I'm at. Now, my website, I will tell you that again, lorifetrick.com, has all my upcoming events on it, speaking engagements, everything that you could want to contact me, merch, store, the whole shot.
Those sick ass hats. Those hats are dope as hell.
Thank you.
Oh, and I love the shirt that I got. It's super, super fresh.
Love it. Love it. I'm so happy.
Well, dang. We'll have you back in 6 months or so to talk about all the other cool things that are going. But in the meantime, have a great rest of your January.
I will. You too, Steve.
I'll talk to you later.
I'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Opening music is the song FSP Theme, written, performed, and provided by Ambush Vin.
Closing music is from the song Say My Name off the 2021 album Underdog Anthems, used with permission from Jax Hollow. If you like the show, tell a friend. Subscribe and rate and review the show on iTunes and wherever else you download podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. All the episodes are available there as well. Check me out on Vero at Fascination Street Pod and TikTok at Fascination Street Pod. And again, thanks for listening.